Hey everybody, I don't normally discuss politics, but this election cycle is actually one that's gotten me really heated, and recently some stuff's been happening that's just kind of really upset me, and I felt like I have to say something just to get it out of my head so I'll stop being angry all the time. The big thing that's really been getting to me this election cycle is how much we just seem to be okay with being lied to. I guess I just wonder why we don't hold our candidates accountable uh, for things that they say. I didn't really support Bernie Sanders at first. I actually resisted him and I kind of rolled my eyes when people talk about him because I'm, I'm kind of a dick. I like to play devil's advocate, and I was initially behind Hillary. Uh, However, then she just kept lying or telling half truths. When people bring up things like the Barry her supporting Barry Goldwater when she was like like in her teens, I think still, or really young adult. I'm not gonna hold that against anybody. Like who we are decades ago doesn't really apply to now. I'm talking about stuff that she has directly said on the trail, saying that Bernie Sanders called Obama weak and pathetic, which just isn't true. And it's phenomenal what a stretch it is because what had happened was and I looked at fact checked the whole thing after it happened in the debate, and he said there was a book involved. Looked it up. There was a book that he endorsed that looked at why progressives weren't entirely happy with Obama's presidency, why they felt like he didn't do enough, and he praised it for being a good look at why progressives still weren't satisfied, why they wanted more. It's like all he said, and it's been the general theme with a lot of these things. She said that he voted against the auto industry bailout, which is was also false, and he pointed that out. And then because they fought over that, I went and looked it up. They didn't know any of the money from that bailout was going to go towards the auto industry. And actually, when there was an auto industry bailout, he did vote for it. Just a lot of things like that where you can argue semantics and say that they weren't outright lies, but it was at least misleading statements, half truths, misrepresenting things. And I just find that really odd. And then Arizona happened. If you don't know what happened in Arizona, a bunch of people weren't allowed to vote who got there and were told that for some reason they were listed as Republican or they were listed as Independent or the Green Party or something other than Democrat, so they weren't allowed to vote. There were some people who were working at the primaries who said that about 2/3 of the people that came in were given provisional ballots and were told that those votes wouldn't be counted. That is a lot of people. And there was a lot of shady stuff about while there were still people in line for the primary, when less than 1% of the precincts had actually counted the votes. Uh, Apparently, they announced that Hillary won, so that people standing in line were just like, it's too late, and they left. Outside of Bernie, nobody's mentioned it. And what set me off and what made me make this video was that Hillary today, or last night, tweeted out something from her senior policy advisor. It's this article about how people in 2014 weren't allowed to vote. They were suppressed by a lot of the same methods that happened in Arizona. So I saw this, and it set me off a little bit. I got a little testy, and just to see, I looked back through everything to see if Hillary ever once addressed the fact that a bunch of people were denied their right to vote in Arizona, and it was never addressed. Every single candidate, if they say they're running for this because they want the best for the country, and because they want to represent the people, which all three people who are being considered, Trump, Hillary, and Bernie, are all saying that they're running for the people to represent everybody. Like they're really emphasizing that they are candidates that are supporting everyone. Uh, they should all be bringing this up. They should all be wanting to investigate and fix the fact that the democratic process was severely impeded in Arizona. Because even if all those votes were going to go to Hillary, I at least want to know beyond a shadow of a doubt that she deserved to win that state. I want to know that that's where the votes were going to go. I don't want to prove that Hillary is bad so I can be right. I ultimately, like best case scenario, would find out that she's actually a good candidate and that things would be okay if she got elected and that she is all the things that she says she is. But so far, her actions and her words aren't matching up. And the only candidate who is Bernie. And that's why I support him. Another thing I thought was funny was they really made a big deal out of how Arizona was a heavily Latino state. But the Latino votes were suppressed in Arizona, polling places weren't opened in Latino neighborhoods. On that Tuesday, Hillary actually didn't win as many delegates as Bernie Sanders did. And yet, most of the articles in mainstream media were saying it was a huge day for Hillary because she won Arizona. I'm going to wait for the siren to pass now. So the media was saying that Hillary had a huge day because she won Arizona, even though she lost the day in terms of delegate count. Uh, Huge celebration about her winning Arizona. Not talking about the suppression, not talking about the people who didn't get to vote, not talking about those problems. They just kind of ignore those, would make a huge deal out of that. Bernie Sanders recently just swept 3 caucuses in a row. The next day, all the papers are talking about the Republican sex scandal. Nobody's making a huge deal out of the fact that the underdog candidate just won big, like in 3 different states by a lot. Margins of 40 to 60%, I believe, all 3 states considered. And it's just becoming painfully obvious that there really is a media blackout. Like that's what happens when Hillary loses something. They talk about Trump, and they're like, Trump's gonna happen. We gotta get Clinton, otherwise we're gonna have Trump. Just ignoring the fact that maybe Sanders actually is a viable option, and maybe he's actually the best option. But that's not even being considered, not even being discussed in media. I try to have a lot of discussions with people who think differently than me because I want to learn. I want to make the most educated choice I possibly can. And I can't stress enough. I guess the reason I made this is I know most of my viewers are younger, but educate yourselves. Read news from all over, many different sources. Read conservative news, read liberal news, read unaffiliated news. Just people like the Young Turks. Read the Huffington Post. Read everywhere. And I don't really like the Huffington Post that much. But that's the point. Read from all different sources so you can figure out what the true stuff is and what stuff is opinion. And fact check everything. Whenever you see anything that is like a hard line, like this person said this, look it up. Find the actual speeches. Watch the actual speeches. If it's actually impossible for him to win 58% of the delegates when he won like 70% of the ones yesterday, then why are they trying so hard to tell you not to vote for him? Nobody's writing 20 articles about O'Malley telling you not to vote for O'Malley. So please, get out there. Actually vote for whoever you support and talk to people and look at the other side. And let's just try and make the right choice. I guess. Whatever you think it is. Let's see what happens.